Hello and welcome to another episode of Saturday Morning Nostalgia. We're on to, this is Series 3, Episode 3. The year is 2012. We're in the third quarter, so that's July to September. 3 Magic products that I want to talk about that came out then, or paper Magic products. We had Magic 2013, which came out in July, From the Vault's Realms that came out in August, and Jul-Sept Izzet vs Golgari that came out in September. So first up we have the 2013 core set. Just to show you, here's the artwork that was in that piece of card that surrounds the fat pack. The nickel bolus was in the set, and we'll see how that appeared. A large set, so core set, so no surprise there. 249 cards, 101 commons, 60 uncommons, 53 rares, 15 mythic rares, 20 basic lands in this set. So what I'm going to do is flick through the basic card, the player's guide for this core set, and then as I do that I'll just chat a little bit about the overall themes behind the set, and then we'll go look at and through some individual cards that I pulled. So with the player's guides for the core set, what they'll tend to do, obviously you can see here we've got a bit about nickel bolus, is they sort of often focus on the individual colour. They sort of go back to basics. So you have a section on playing white with, we had Planeswalker. Planeswalkers were fairly well entrenched in Magic, starting from the Lorwyn block. So now we get here and we're seeing Planeswalkers in basically every set. So with the core sets, we've got all five Planeswalkers, one for each colour. So in blue we've got Jace. And also what they tended to do in these players' guide for the core sets was to put in like just a sample deck, which played to the strengths of the particular colour. So in black again we've got the Planeswalker, we've got a bit about playing black. Also it mentions sort of some tribal tie-ins like vampires and zombies. And then we've got the deck. Sample deck. Then we've got to move on to red with Chandra, and then to green with Garrick. A bit about artifacts and the cycle of rings that were in the set, and then a bit about the non-basic lands, and I'll talk about a bit about the cycle that was in here as well. So interestingly, for a core set, and someone can correct me if I've got this wrong, but I think this is the first time we saw multicoloured cards in a core set. There was one, I believe, which was Nicol Bolas Planeswalker. So if we look at the top 10 coolest Magic 2013 cards, so in addition to Nicol Bolas, which they considered to be one of the 10, we have Ajani, we have Liliana, we've got Rancor, which came back after, as they say here, after more than a decade away from the game. Omniscience, Murder, Elder Scale Worm, Daughter Nothingness, Knight of Glory, and Rummaging Goblin. So what you find with a lot of core sets is there's not always a large amount of keywords abilities that are particular to that core set. What you will find is often you see things like evergreen stuff like lifelink, first strike, flying, that sort of stuff. But one thing they did do in this set was they had exalted, so that was their only real sort of special keyword ability for this set. You'll also notice where they're with some abilities which in regular sets they might not explain, in a core set they will do that. So you'll get things like vigilance, so it has the qualifying text with that, so attacking doesn't cause the creature to tap. Another thing is with the cycles, they were fairly straightforward, but has had interesting synergies, I suppose this might be a good way of putting it. But there were tie-ins across the cycles, and what I mean by that was there was, as you can see, a cycle of planeswalkers, one for each colour. But there was also a cycle of planeswalker namesakes. So with Ajani we have Ajani's Sunstriker. The other thing they did was there was also a cycle of what you might call planeswalker actions. So what they did was they took the planeswalker abilities and put certain abilities onto cards, basically. And as we go through some of these cards, we might see some of those particular cards. They weren't necessarily named the same as the namesake cards. They had a Ajani in there, but there might be a certain clue. So you'll see we've got Ajani, Caller of the Pride, which on one of those was cared about your life total. And then you have Healer of the Pride. So whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 2 life. So it's interesting to look out for certain cards which echo certain conditions, benefits, whatever you want to call them, actions of the planeswalker, and have some sort of interaction in there or some reference back to that. So in blue, the other thing actually, cycle of legendary creatures, which we've just missed. So Odric was the white one, and there was also related to legendary as well in some way. There was a cycle of those. You've got there Crusader of Odric, you see. There's also a cycle of what was referred to as Sedge creatures, which was a reference back to an earlier card with that had Sedge in its title, and these had +1/+1 and an ability on them. And there was a cycle of those across the colours. So in blue we've got Jace, Memory Adept, we've got Jace's Phantasm in here. There's Talleyrand, our legendary creature, and then we've got Talleyrand's Invocation as well. We've got Mind Sculpt as a card. In black, there's Liliana, there's Liliana's Shade. There's Neferox, our black legendary creature. And we move into red. So there's Chandra, there's Chandra's Fury. And there's Flames of the Firebrand. Now our red legendary, which I might have just missed. Let me just go back, because there was definitely a red legendary in each colour. They were the lead card on the intro decks, I believe. Oh, there we go. There's Krenko. Then in green we have Garrett's pack leader. There's Yeva, Nature's Herald, which is our legendary, and also its related card, Yeva's Force Mage. So here's Nicol Bolas, which is the multicoloured Planeswalker, and as you can see, the only multicoloured card in the set. There's our rings, and here's our non-basic lands. You can see we had some lands which had an ability on them. In fact, there's several. You got the Cathedral of War, which had Exalted on it, which was a keyword. Then we had Helion Crucible, which had a red activation on it, in addition to producing colourless mana. Reliquary Tower was in the set, but then we also had these other cards, which is a cycle of check lands. So what they would do is they would check as they enter the battlefield whether you control a mountain or a plain. So Rootbound Crag enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain or plain or forest in the case of Rootbound Crag. And you can see for allied colours there's one of each of those basically. Oh, there were some pairs as well: Dark Favour, Divine Favour, Knight of Glory, Knight of Infamy. So let's look at some of the rares that I was lucky enough to pull. So we've got Odric Master Tactician. It's got First Strike on it. Whenever Odric Master Tactician and at least 3 other creatures attack, you choose which creatures block this combat and how those creatures block. Touch of the Eternal. Sarah Avatar, which had a synergy between its power and toughness and your life total. Sarah Avenger. Got Spell Twine. Sphinx of Ythun. So you'll notice here I've got some I've got Vampire Nocturus in different artwork. So one of these was from the set, and the other one was a promo card that came as part of a sort of, if you bought the Jewels of the Planeswalker from that year. So there was a Jewels of the Planeswalker that went with this core set. So if you got the software, it would come with a little booster pack, and inside of that was a Vampire Nocturus, and this is the alternate artwork for that one. Challenge of the Firebrand, so I think that was for the PlayStation actually. So there's Chandra's Fury, which we actually got a foil of. Reverberate, Slumbering Dragon, Elvish Archdruid, so Kel's cared about elves. Garrett Primal Hunter, Predatory Rampage, Silk Lash Spider, and I was lucky enough to get a Thragtusk as well. In terms of the check lands, I managed to open a Drowned Catacomb, Dragon Skull Summit, and Sun Petal Grove, so I was pretty lucky there. So yeah, some pretty interesting rares there. I'm just looking to see what was interesting about the rares I pulled was that none of these actually had Exalted on them. So we'll have a look at that when we start to go through the commons and uncommons. just zoom in a little bit so we can maybe see these better. Okay. So having a quick look at white, of course what we're going to see with the commons and uncommons is this is going to be, you know, when you get into a core set, you're going to see things that are incredibly typical for particular colours in here. So we've got a Johnny's Sunstriker, which had lifelink on it. Angel's Mercy, we've got life gain. There's an Exalted card. So with Exalted, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Another card with Exalted. We've got First Strike in white on Attendant Knight. Avon Squire had flying and Exalted on it. Captain's Call, the tokens. Crusader of Odric, so that's a tie into the legendary of that colour. Divine Favour. Divine Verdict. Destroys attacking or blocking creature. That's one thing you see in white, way of dealing with that. Glorious Charge. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Griffin Protector. Guardian Lions. It's got Vigilance. Yeah, so Exalted, very heavily in white. Guardians of Akrasa, Healer of the Pride, the life gain card. Knight of Glory had protection from black and Exalted on it. We've got Pacifism in the set. Got one of our vanilla creatures here, Pillarfield Ox, Prized Elephant. So let's have a look at this. If we can pick out these cards, so this is the sort of card I was talking about. So we've got 3 in a white. Prized Elephant gets +1/+1 as long as you control a forest. Green, Prized Elephant gains trample until end of turn. Safe Passage, the damage protection. Show of Valor, Pump Spell, instant speed. 1 in a white, you get +2/+4 until end of turn. Another vanilla creature in the form of Silvercoat Lion. Wolf Falcons in here with flying, and then Warclamp Mastiff. Okay, so we're in blue. We're probably going to see some more flyers. So Arctic Avon. So here we go. This is part of that cycle I was talking about. 2 in a blue with flying. Arctic Avon gets +1/+1 as long as you control the planes. Single white, Arctic Avon gains lifelink until end of turn. So what we're seeing here is a sort of, you know, indicator cards, I suppose, for playing combinations. So it's like we got here. Okay, well maybe you should say play blue-white. And then you're seeing a crossover into that colour. So we've got a white activation cost here that gives lifelink. Augur of Bolis, Downpour, so tap down, Encrust, another another thing that affects tapping, and also the abilities Essence Scatter. So we've got counter spell in here, but just for creatures. Fairy Invaders, Flash and Flying, Fog Bank with Defender and Flying. Harbour Servant has Island Walk on it. So it's a 5/5 for 4 and 2 blue, but it can't attack unless there are 5 or more islands on the battlefield. So you'll see how certain cards, and this is a particular thing, I mean it's all over sets, but often in core sets they're trying to give clues to beginner players to go down certain avenues. So you often see cards that say, oh, this needs to happen, or that needs to happen, or, you know, encourage you to play certain, you know, cards that encourage you to play monocolour, cards that encourage you to play 2 colours, that sort of stuff. Index plays at the top of your library. Jace's Phantasm. So the Planeswalker namesake card, Kraken Hatchling, another vanilla creature. We've got Negate that counters non-creature spells. Merfolk, vanilla Merfolk there. Mind Sculpt, so reference back to Jace. Scroll Thief sleeps in here. Another card that messes with tapping. Switcheroo. Talaran Summoner. So there's a legendary namesake card. Tricks of the Trade. Unsummon. It's a bounce spell. Vidalcan Entrancer. Watercourser. Welcome Turn. So more flying. It's a flying card in the form of Windrake. It's 2 and a blue 2/2. I think they call that card, for that type of card, referred to as something like French vanilla, I think, where it's you know, like there's no ability beyond something fairly straightforward like flying. So moving on to black, Bloodhunter Bats, so more flying creatures. Bloodtone Vampire, Carrion Fear, Crippling Blight, Dark Favour. That was the pair with the one in white, which was Divine Favour. Disentomb, Graveyard Interaction, Duskmantle Prowler had Exalted on it. Duress is in here, Duty Bound Dead. Another Exalted card. So you can see Exalted's turning up in black here. Essence Drains in the set. Giant Scorpion. 1/3 with Death Touch. Knight of Infamy. It's got Exalted on it. That was another pair that I mentioned. Knight of Glory, Knight of Infamy. This one gives protection from white. The other one had protection from black. The white one. Liliana's Shade. So we've got a namesake card. Mark of the Vampire. Mind Rot's in here. Murder. Destroy target creature for 1 and 2 black. So that's one of our sort of main black destruction, creature destruction spells. It's a higher costed one that has an additional ability tacked onto it. So it's instant speed, it's 5 and a black. It does destroy a target creature, but also each other creature that player controls get -2, -0 until end of turn. Very favourable public execution. Ravenous Rats. Servant of Nephirox. There's Exalted on it, so that's the namesake for the legendary. Sign in Blood, Tormented Soul. Vampire Nighthawk was in the deck, so this is the 1 and 2 black, 2/3 flying, Death Touch and Lifelink. Vile Rebirth. More Graveyard Interaction. Walking Corpse, and then Zombie Goliath. Moving on to red, we've got Vanilla Blade Tusk Boar, Canyon Minotaur, Chandra's Fury, so I've got a namesake card for Chandra, Cleaver's Riot, giving our creatures double strike, that's sorcery speed. So Crimson Muck Wader, so 1 and a red creature lizard, Crimson Muck Wader gets +1/+1 as long as you control the swamp. It's black ability, 2 and a black, regenerate Crimson Muckwalker. Dragon Hatchling, fire breathing on it. Fire Elemental, Flames the Firebrand. So tying to Chandra, Goblin Arsonist, Goblin Battle Jester, Kindled Fury, pulled some of those. Krenko's Command, so namesake card for Krenko. It generates, it's a sorcery card that generates 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens for 1 and a red. Mark of Mutiny, so gaining control of target creatures for the turn, and giving them haste is a thing in red. Mindclaw Shaman, Mog Flunkies, Reckless Brute, you see haste is a red thing. We've got Rummaging Goblin, so tie into the term rummaging, where you discard a card and then draw a card. Searing Spear, so our 3 damage spell for 1 and a red. Smelt, way of dealing with artifacts. Trumpet Blast, so it's a lopsided power, pump spell on attacking creatures. Turn to Slag, way of dealing with equipment. Volcanic Strength, pump enchantment there, that'll permanently pump a creature, and then card draw in red. So interesting things as well, like when you have card draw in red, how does red deal with that? Well, in the case of Wild Guest, what it does is you have to discard a card. So colour, that's how you achieve card draw outside of blue, basically, is by having this other caveat, which is synonymous with that particular colour. So if we were talking about card draw in black, there'd have some sort of life you might have to pay, or some additional sacrifice that you'd have to give to do card draw. Arbor Elf, Bond Beetle, Bountiful Harvest. So we've got life gain in green. Centaur Corsair is a vanilla creature. Deadly Recluse, no surprise to see spiders. This one had Death Touch on it as well. Dustdale Worm, got Elvis Visionary, so we've got card draw. Farseek, searching for plains, islands, swamp or mountain card. Fungal Sprouting, green tokens in the form of Saprolings. Garrett's Pack Leader, so there's Garrett's namesake card. Naturalize, way of dealing with artifacts or enchantments in green. Plummet, way of dealing with flying creatures. Prey Upon, so this is how green has a removal spell, so basically by fighting. Primal Hunt's Beast had hexproof on it. This is Rancor, which was the one that sort of came back after, was it 10-year absence. So single green, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and has trample. When Rancor is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return Rancor to its owner's hand. So that's makes that super annoying. Way of hunting down forests. Another spider with vigilance and obviously reach on it. Serpent's Gift gives something Death Touch. It's interesting, when you look at green and how it removes creatures. The basic premise with green is that in order to remove creature, it has to be some way which ties in with basically creature combat. Timberpack Wolf, Titanic Growth is in here, so this is the 1 and a green spell at instant speed that makes a creature +4/+4. And then Vastwood Gorge, you often see this in green, very large vanilla creature, in this case 5 and a green for 5/6. Yeva's Force Mage, so a namesake legendary creature card, and there's a couple of those. So the only other thing here, these are all my commons and uncommons. Let's have a look at the sort of artifacts that I pulled. So we've got Clock of Omens, Elixir of Immortality, Gemaday Tome, Phyrexian Hulk, Primal Clay. Here's some rings. So Ring of Evosile, so 2 generic mana, And for 2, equip creature gains hexproof until end of turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on equip creature. It's blue. Equipped for 1. The Thune was the white version of that, and the equipped creature had vigilance. The Valkas was the red one, and that gave a creature haste. And I've got Tormont's Crypt in here as well. So graveyard hate basically. And then our non-basic lands, which I suspect, well, we did get a Reliquary Tower, which is cool. So I've got a couple of Evolving Wilds I pulled, and then the Reliquary Tower, which is you have no maximum hand side, tap, add 1 to your mana pool. Great EDH Commander staple. Okay, so that was the commons and uncommons that I pulled when I opened the various boosters. Now, for this particular set, unlike other sets, the one thing I didn't do was actually I didn't buy an event deck for this. I think at the time I was starting to sort of come around that I couldn't really see the point of the event decks to a certain degree. I mean, sure, they were more powerful than the intro packs, but I think often they were only worth getting if you wanted to sort of explore a particular strategy in Magic, and you just wanted something to start off with. So I didn't bother with this particular set. I did buy the Deck Builder's Toolkit, which has long been dismantled. This is just being used as a card box currently. And as with previous Deck Builders Toolkits, 285 cards. We'll just open up the insert that came with this, because it's nice to see at that time what Wizards were sort of pushing in terms of different builds. So what they'll do in these is you'll get a suggestion for deck themes, and with the Deck Builder's Toolkit, you've seen me, anybody that's watched the channel for a while now, have seen me open numerous ones of these, and gets an idea of how it's put together. You know, what parts of the deck are completely random in terms of the boosters, which ones are semi-random, and which ones never change at all, or, you know, between toolkits. So the deck themes tie into the semi-random element, where you're getting 4 out of these themes in your Deck Builder's Toolkit. So the themes that they chose were mid-range green, exalted, vampires, angels, zombies, blue-black evasion, humans, spirits, red burn, tokens, and library depletion. And obviously what they're doing is they're pulling not only from cards from the core set, but previous sets as well, to basically give that to you. And then finally, just a quick look at a couple of the intro decks. So these are the 2 that I bought. So one that I got was the Path to Victory, which was the white-blue deck. So this had Odric Master Tactician as the lead card. Nice foil Odric there. 2 and 2 white legendary creature human soldier with first strike. 3/4. Whenever Odric Master Tactician and at least 3 other creatures attack, you choose which creatures block this combat and how those creatures block. Captain of the Watch. 4 and 2 white creature human soldier. It's 3/3 with vigilance. Other soldier creatures you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. When Captain of the Watch enters the battlefield, you put 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. So I think that gives us a bit of a clue as to what this deck's going to be about. So moving on to our commons, a couple of Chronomatons, 2 Crusader of Odrics, 2 Arctic Avens, 1 Courtly Provocateur, 1 Healer of the Pride. No, it's actually 2 Healer of the Prides. Seer Angel. There's a Ring of Thune in here. Oblivion Rings in here. And then moving on to our commons, we've got 3 Silvercoat Lions, 3 Ajani Sunstrikers, 3 Attendant Knights, a couple of Griffin Protectors, a Battlefield Eagle, Fairy Invader, Glorious Charge, a Downpour, a Safe Passage, 2 Captain Calls, 2 Divine Verdicts, a Tricks of the Trade, an Evolving Wilds, and then our white mana base and our blue mana base. Blue basic lands. Okay, so you can see that was very much white blue, both Soldiers Matters deck. It did have flying in there, flyers as well in there. A bit of life gain going on, but that wasn't. I know there was Exalted in white, but that wasn't the Exalted deck for this. As I mentioned, I think probably a couple of times now, each one of these intro packs had the the relevant legendary from the set as their lead card. So the other one I got was the Soul Domination deck, which was, I believe, yeah, it's a white-black deck. So just where I position that. So the 5 intro decks were the Path to Victory, which was white-blue, which we've seen. Can't read my own writing here. There was a blue-red deck, Depth of Something. Soul Domination was the white-black, which is this one. And then Mob Rule, red-green. And then Wild Rush was a black-green deck. Interesting. So they didn't necessarily stick with allied colours for these. Okay. Nephoros, Overlord of Grixis, flying, exalted, and whenever Nephoros, Overlord of Grixis attacks alone, defending player sacrifices a creature. Zathrid Gorgon, 5 and a black, 3/6 creature Gorgon with Death Touch, 2 and a black, tap, put a petrification counter on target creature. It gains Defender and becomes a colourless artifact in addition to its other types. Its activated abilities can't be activated. So now we'll move on. We should see lots of Exalted in here. So we've got Knight of Glories in here with protection from black and Exalted. Knight of Infamy, a couple of those. Vampire Nighthawk with flying and death touch on it. Duskmantle Prowler, haste and exalted. Veilborn Ghoul, Ring of Zathrid, Karin Fear, a couple of those. Blood Reckoning, Angelic Benediction. Moving on to our commons in this pack, in this deck. Warclamp Mastiff, Duty Bound Dead. So there's a couple of those. Exalted on it. Tormented Soul, a couple of those. Avon Squire, which has flying and exalted. A couple of those. Walking Corpse, which was just a 1 black 2/2, so that's a black bear. Guardians of Akrasa, Defender and Exalted. Servant of Nephoros. There's 3 of those. Bloodhunter Bat, a couple of those. A Liliana Shade, a Zombie Goliath. And we had some pacifism in here. A couple of those. A couple of murders. A Mark of the Vampire. An Evolving Wilds, and then our mana base in black and white. that was our Soul Domination deck. I remember at the time, actually annoyed me a bit, the certainly locally, so at this time people were getting really interested in Commander, and I actually noticed that shops, bizarrely, which I've never seen with intro decks, were actually bumping up the price of the intro decks because they had a lead legendary. Now that's happened before, but it was the timing seemed to be interesting with respect to the the mainstream interest that was happening with Commander products. So yeah, that was rather unusual. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is this lovely product. I don't buy many of these simply because by the time I get around to buying them, the price has normally gone through the roof. Sometimes I get lucky, and there was a couple that I sort of picked up around release day, and they were just fairly easy to get hold of. I can't remember whether this was the case. I know there's none I've really particularly paid over the odds for. So with the From the Vaults, these were a special release. Now when they come out, their American MRSP is $34.99. I very rarely see these in Canada, certainly for that, and anywhere. I mean, they're quite difficult to get hold of. There's certain ones that didn't sell so well or weren't that popular. I think one of the few ones that I actually just got at literally, close to that price, but just factoring in the exchange rate, was the one with all the legendary creatures in it. This one I think I picked up after the fact and probably paid about 50 to 60 bucks for, and then what you normally find is that some of these hover around the 90, at least a 90 to 100 bucks mark. They've got an unusual foil in them, which unfortunately doesn't hold up well, and unless you sort of keep them super flat in like top loaders or something fairly heavy duty, they do tend to curl. So these were all land related cards, if you like. So we have in here, let me just focus in a bit better so you can see that. You can see the curvature is sort of aggravating this a bit. So we got a Maze of Ith in here, Forbidden Orchard, Glacial Chasm in here. These were 15 non-basic laying cards with holographic foils, 7 new art and a spin down counter. I'll show you the spin down counter in a moment. Grove of Burn Willows and High Market. Of course, Dryad Arbor is a land creature. You can see that's 1/1 there. Murmuring Bosque, Shivan Gorge, Vesuva, Windbrisk Heights, and then our last group of 5, Urborg. Oops. Can actually get that straight. Ancient Tomb, Bossiju, who shelters all, which is a legendary land, Kephalid Colosseum, and Desert. So there's our spin down counter with the set symbol. All the From the Vaults have their own particular set symbol. The other thing you get in this is sort of their version From the Vaults of a player's guide. So what it does is it goes through the cards and gives you a rundown of the sort of play history, I suppose, of the card. So if we look at Desert, for instance, it's got the card, the sets that it appeared in, and then a little background story. It says the tale of Desert is longer than any other card in this box. Desert has first appeared in Arabian Nights, the first ever Magic expansion, and features something that was brand new, an activated ability of a land that doesn't produce mana. That place in history earned Desert an encore appearance in the Time Spiral Time Shifted set, where it became a linchpin of Kenji Samura's Time Spiral block constructed, defining mono blue control deck. There we go. So it did actually produce colourless, but there was an ability on there that didn't produce mana. I think that was the point they were trying to make. So that's our From the Roots, just from that period. As I said, if you were lucky enough to have a friendly local game store, you might have picked this up at that sort of price, but very difficult to do. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is the dual decks, Izzet versus Golgari, 1999 when these came out, September the 7th. These got a few interesting cards in them actually, and I think it would actually be quite difficult to find these at the the original price. In fact, with a lot of dual decks, and more the case with the early ones until they released the anthology, the prices on these went up. So the Izzet, in the case of Izzet, the lead card was Niv Mizzet the Firemind, and that was an instance and sorceries themed deck with Replicate, and then the Golgari one, which was Jared Golgari Lichlord, Graveyard and Dredge. Actually, one thing I'm just going to add, totally unrelated to this, one thing I didn't mention when I did the Magic 2013 stuff was that the two event decks were Repeat Performance, which was white-green, and Sweet Revenge, which was blue-black-red. Okay, so let's have a look at our first deck here. So this is the Niv Mizzet deck. So we'll go through the rares. So the lead card is Niv Mizzet. So it's a foil. You can tell by it's slightly curving there, even this has been kept fairly flat. 2 blue, 2 red, 4/4 with flying. It's a legendary creature, dragon wizard. Whenever, I've got trouble seeing this because it's right on the card. Whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet the Firemind deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Tap, draw a card. Galvanoth is in here, 3 and 2 red, 3/3. Creature beast. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may look at the top card of your library. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Jin Illuminatus, 5 blue red hybrid mana. Creature Jin. It's a 3/5 with flying. Each instant and sorcery spell you cast has Replicate. Replicate cost is equal to its mana cost. When you cast it, copy it, and for each time you paid its Replicate cost, you may choose new targets for the copies. Prophetic Bolt, 3 blue red, instant. Prophetic Bolt deals 4 damage to target creature or player. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Sphinx Bone Wand, 7 generic mana artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may put a charge counter on Sphinx Bone Wand. If you do, Sphinx Bone Wand deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target creature or player. Invoke the Fire Mind, X, 2 blue and a red. Sorcery, choose 1, draw X cards, or invoke the Fire Mind, deals X damage to target creature or player. Izzet Guild Mage, so we're moving on to our uncommons and commons now. G-Electrode, Shrewd Hatchlings. You notice with these dual decks, as I've mentioned I think on several occasions, you get a lot of one-offs in here. There's a couple of those. So it's basically ones and twos. Isochron Scepter, Izzet Charm, Reminiscence. They're going for high variance, that's the idea with these. So they sort of stand up well to repeat plays on here. Vacuum Out, it's got Replicate on it. Dissipates in here. Overwhelming Intellect. Street Spasm. Fire and Ice is here. Kiln Fiend. A couple of those. Goblin Electromancer. Wee Dragonauts. 2 of those. Steamcore Weird. Ogre Savant. Izzet Chronarch. Brainstorm is in here. Force Spike is in here. Magma Spray. Got Signet in here to just help you fix for blue-red. Call to Heal. Train of Thought. Pyromatics, a couple of those. Quicksilver Dagger. Nivix Area of the Firemind, so this is a non-basic land. Tap, add colourless to your mana pool. 2 blue-red. Tap, exile the top card of your library. Exile your next turn. Until your next turn, you may cast that card if it's an instant or sorcery. Izzet Boiler Works is in here from Ravnica block. There's a couple of those. There's a Lonely Sandbar in here, which is the blue cycling land from way back. Forgotten Cave, which is a red one. Yep, same cycle. And then our regular mana base. So we've got our blue cards. You can see there's some Ravnica block artwork on there. Of course, what was interesting with the timing of this as well was in the next quarter, or the next set that was going to drop would have been Return to Ravnica. So, and you'll often see that with the dual decks. There's often tie-ins to the next stuff that's coming out. It's all very cleverly tied together with these sort of sealed, these special sealed products which don't necessarily belong to a certain set, in that they're not an intro pack or event deck that belong with the set, but nonetheless Wizards will attempt to tie that in some way to upcoming product. So now we have the Golgari one, another deck with some interesting cards in it. Particularly if you're playing Dredge. Now the theme in this was graveyards, and specifically was Dredge. The deck that I several weeks back I was sort of showing you a special online only commander deck that Wizards created, which had Zara Arian as the commander in it. And in that deck there was a number of cards that were pre-printed in this particular dual deck. So obviously something is generating sapling tokens in this deck, because we've got a couple of those. So our lead card is Jarad Golgari Leechlord, another legendary. It's 2 black, 2 green for 2/2 legendary creatures on the elf. Jarad Golgari Leechlord gets +1/+1 for each creature card. I'm going to have to tilt this in your graveyard. 1 black, green, sacrifice another creature. Each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Sacrifice a swamp and a forest. Return Jarad from your graveyard to your hand. So our other rares: Golgari Grave Troll, 4 and a green, creature skeleton troll. It's a 0/0. Golgari Grave Troll enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature card in your graveyard. 1. Remove a 1/1 counter from Golgari Grave Troll. Regenerate Golgari Grave Troll, and it's got Dredge 6 on it. Glean Crawler, 3 black green hybrid. It's a 6/6 with trample. It's an insect horror. At the beginning of your end step, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Doomgape, 4 black green hybrid mana. It's a 10/10 creature elemental with trample. Beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. You gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Life from the loams in here. 1 and a green. Return up to 3 target lands from your graveyard to your hand. Dredge for 3. Useful card because when you're dredging, there's a good chance that you're going to end up putting land in your graveyard. Twilight's cool. 4/2 black sorcery. You may cast Twilight's Call for any time you would cast an instant if you pay 2 or more to cast it. Each player returns all creature cards from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. Played Ulsulka. Golgari Thug. Got Dredge 4 on it. Reassembling skeletons in here. Boneyard Worm. Korozda Guild Mage, so that's a Guild Mage, the Guild Mage for black green. Eternal Witness. Dreadmangler with Haste and Scavenge. Stinger Fling Spider. Sadistic Hypnotist. Ghoul's Feast. Golgari Germination. Putrefies in here, there's a couple of those. Nightmare Void. Vigor Mortis. Grim Flowering. Life and Death. Elves of Deep Shadow. Elves of Deep Shadow. Ravenous Rats. Putrid Leech. Stinkweed, which has Dredge on it. Shambling Shell for the Dredge card. Brainweevil. Greater Moss Dog. Dredge on that one. Golgari Rotworm. A couple of those. Golgari Signet to help us with back green fixing. Yoke of the Damned. Feast or Famine. Darkmoor Salvage is a non-basic land in this pack. So we've got Darkmoor Salvage enters the battlefield tapped, tap for black, and it has Dredge on it. Svogthos the Restless Tomb. Tap, add 1 to your mana pool. 3 black green until end of turns. Svogthos the Restless Tomb becomes a black and green plant zombie creature. With this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. We've got a couple of Golgari rock farms in here. There's a Tranquil Thicket and a Barren Moor. So what we're seeing is there's a sort of mirrored mana base where you've got the relevant cards from Ravnica, those sort of bounce lands, and then the relevant cycling cards that are also on colour, and then a couple of sort of utility lands. So I think that's a nice way of putting the decks together. Actually, I like that sort of symmetry, if you like, in the way the decks are constructed. So there we have it. There's our Dredge thing. One thing I will do for that, actually, I'm just going to open up the pack insert that the insert for the dual deck that you got with this, because it's always interesting to look at those. And if my memory serves me correctly, what I like about them is they do give you a little bit of card history. When I say a little bit, it's simply the fact that next to the card listings for the dead decks, it actually shows the sets that they came from, and I find that really handy. You know, if you're thinking about modifying these decks, then it sort of gives you clues as to, you know, what sets they came from. Are there other cards in that set that may have been synergistic at the time. So you can see here we've got in the blue-red, the Izzet deck, we've got stuff from Rise of the Eldrazi, Guild Pack, Eventide. There's a Mirrodin Besiege card in here. And then some more Mirrodin stuff. There's some random stuff from, say, 7th edition. It's a Shards of Alara card, something from Ice Age and Mercadian Mask in the form of Brainstorm. Some Apocalypse stuff, Onslaught again, Rise of the Eldrazi, Guild Pack, and then here's the land base. So we got Onslaught. That was what I was trying to remember, and then and Guild Pack, which was one of the sets from Ravnica. And then flip over the other side. That's a Dartmoor salvage, came from Future Sight. That was it. So stuff from Invasion, Innistrad, Return to Ravnica, Ravnica City of Guilds, core set, 2012 one. More Ravnica City of Guilds stuff, Mercadian Masks. So yeah, I mean, don't know, I've said it tons of times, but I do really like these dual decks. They're just such a cool idea, and I just hope it's one of the products that Magic never get rid of, because it's just fantastic. So I hope you've enjoyed today's nostalgic look at July to September, the third quarter of 2012. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.